Hi there, Fluties. Welcome to the studio. Today I want to talk about practice. And I'm not here to lecture anybody about practice. I actually just want to tell you what it's like to be a music teacher and balancing my own practice and getting better at my instrument versus the time that I spend teaching. I think that young musicians have this idea that their teachers are just done, right? They're finished. They've practiced all they need to practice in their lives. Therefore, there's no need for them to sit down and spend time working on their instrument when, if they do play a gig or something like that, they're just going to jump right in and do it. And I think in particular, this goes for like tone and technique exercises. Maybe in my students' heads, oh, well, she has a gig coming up, or she's playing with this particular band or orchestra. She's doing this gig. She's going to practice that music, or this recital's coming up. She's going to practice for this recital. And while that is true, I also have to keep up my chops, right? Because there does get to be a point of when you're in college that I truly believe like you are playing the peak of, solo repertoire that you're likely ever going to actually perform or work on, right? And, when you get out of school, you're doing gigs, but, for instance, like the wedding gigs that I play, yeah, I'll need to run through that music more than likely, but the likelihood is that I'm not spending as much time, right, working on it as I would have, my freshman year of college working on the shamanade, right? Those are things that, you spend a lot of time polishing up, but you don't have to spend that much time on gig repertoire as you get older and more mature as a musician. That said, that doesn't mean that I don't practice my instrument. And it also doesn't mean that I have stopped working on the fundamentals. I believe, and I think that my students sometimes believe that, once you hit this certain point that you're finished, you've mastered it. But that's not entirely true. Honestly, it's not true at all. I don't think that I don't think that anybody reaches a point where they can't get better ever. You can look at Jasmine Choi. She's kind of the flutist of our generation. She's the big one right now, and I don't think that Jasmine Choi will ever get to a point that she is not working on her playing. And I loved this because actually in the last couple of months, she posted a reel comparing, I cannot remember what piece it is, but she was comparing one piece that she played in 2019, and then she played it again in 2022, and then she played it again in 2024, and she posted the three side by side, and you could hear a difference, right? You could hear that she had worked out some things, right? Her tone had blossomed and opened up in this piece, right? Not that she didn't have beautiful, incredible tone in 2019, because she absolutely did. However, we can always get better, right? We can always continue to work and always continue to, as much as I hate this phrase, we're chasing the carrot, right? There's a carrot on the string, and we're just going to keep on chasing it to get better and better and better. And the carrot never stops moving, right? We're never at a point where we catch it, right? Because there's always going to be something to work towards. So, point being that yes, I absolutely do work on technique and tone and articulation, not just gig pieces, not just big pieces of repertoire. I have an etude regimen, I have tone exercises, I have technique exercises, I still work on scales. So a big thing for me right now is that I want to get faster. Inherently, I've never been the fastest player around me, right? If you put me in a group of three, or 3 or 5 or 10 flutists, I'm probably in the bottom half in terms of speed if we've all been playing around the same amount of time and put about the same amount of work in. I truly believe that there is a trust issue on my end, where I don't necessarily trust my fingers to go for it, right? I don't trust my fingers to land where they need to land. And I do believe that that is part of my problem, which is kind of where I'm working at mentally, right? To trust. Right? To trust that I know my scales like the back of my hand, therefore let my fingers go for it instead of trying to mechanically move my fingers. So, a big part of my practice in the last, couple of months has been working on the Reichert 7 daily exercises, particularly number 1, which is actually my favorite scale exercise. And I do have students working on this exercise, by the way, because I truly believe that a lot of these exercises, there's always something more that you can get out of them. And you never really get to the point that you've completely mastered them, right? You could always go faster. You could always, phrase better. You could always have them sound more musical. You can make them what you need to make them. And with these, you can work on articulation. Again, you can work on phrasing. You can work on dynamics. You can work on finger technique and speed, breath support, breath control. All of those things you can get out of exercises like this. So the big ones that I have been working on personally have been 1 and 3 in an attempt to get my finger speed, to improve my finger speed. And that has been a big goal of mine over the last several months. However, it's been a big focus in the last couple of weeks. And I say all that to say that, again, we never really grow out of practicing, right? We're never really finished. And I think that sometimes there are students that believe if they put enough hours in, if they spend enough time in the practice room, that they'll get to a point that they don't have to practice anymore. And I think that that is doing yourself a disservice, right? Because there are lots of flutists out there that get to a certain point and they stop practicing. I was that way for a little while. After I graduated, I thought, well, I'm finished, I'm done, I'm good. And I think that I did myself a disservice by believing that I had put in enough hours to be done practicing. Now, I'm not saying work through burnout. I'm not saying to never take a break. I don't believe in that. If you follow me at all, if you are familiar with my channel, you know that I'm a big fan of taking breaks. I am a big fan of doing what you need to do mentally, because if you are not mentally well, then you're not going to be musically well. And you are going to cause yourself injuries mentally and physically if you are practicing through times when you need to be taking a break. I believe that wholeheartedly, and that is a conversation for a different day. However, I also believe that, again, as a musician, you sort of accept the fact that you're going to keep chasing the carrot. You're going to keep chasing the carrot. And I think that that is something so beautiful about what we do. I think that there are hobbies out there. There are things out there that you can do where you reach a pinnacle, right? You are the best. You are the fastest. You are you have mastered everything that there is to master, and you're done. But music is not one of those hobbies. Music is not one of those careers either. Music is one that you can continue going as long as you want to go, right? As long as you need to go, as long as you can go, you can always be getting better. And especially for my adult students, I think that it's important to remember that this is not a old dogs can't learn new tricks scenario either. Musicians are forever, until the day that they don't want to play or cannot play their instrument anymore. They are forever working to improve. They're forever chasing the carrot. And I think that's one of the most incredible things about what we do. I think that's one of the most incredible things about what we do and why I keep doing it. So as for me, again, a big goal in my practice has been the Reichert and working on finger speed, working on, revisiting the double and triple tonguing muscle. Yes, because that muscle will atrophy, friends. I don't know if you know that, but just because you learned how to double or triple tongue 2 years ago and you haven't done it since, doesn't mean it's going to be great right now. That muscle will atrophy, so continuing to work on it, continuing to, just allowing that muscle to work itself out is important. So keep working on those skills that you think you're already done with, right? Even if you think that your fingers are the fastest, east of the Rockies, it doesn't matter. Keep working on it. So when I practice, I actually primarily focus on these exercises. I focus on the Riker. I focus on, Moise has some technical exercises that I work on, as well as the top register etudes. I'm revisiting those right now, just because I feel like my top register is a little bit wonky right this second. Not wonky, maybe more, it just needs a little bit of love. It just needs a little bit of love from me. It went a little bit neglected in terms of exercises for a little while, and I didn't really feel like I needed to do anything with it. And then I started playing through some of the top register exercises and realized that, yeah, it could use some work. It could use some love. And that's what I want you to think about when you are practicing these types of exercises. When you're practicing technique and when you're practicing tone and when you're practicing articulation, you're giving that skill some love, right? And I love that idea, right? Because we love our flute, right? We love our instrument. We love what we do. So why not give those little sections of our flute playing the love that they deserve? So I show my flute playing love. I show my flute love by practicing these scale exercises, technique exercises. I am currently revisiting The Modern Flutist for etudes. I'm currently running through the Donjon etudes, which I actually just restarted this book. So I'll be doing the Donjon and then headed to the Carguilère exercises, the 30 caprices, and those are absolutely incredible. Again, if you don't have an etude regimen, you really should. You really should. So etude is French for study, and etudes tend to target one or two things in your playing in order to improve it in a practical and musical way. So, right, so you're not just running through these isolated scale exercises, right, or these isolated technique exercises. You're actually putting it into context, which is what I love about etudes and one of the reasons why I harp on etudes so much. So I actually do have a free guide that essentially just walks through all of the etude books that my students work through in progressive order, and it talks about what book you should be using when and how to work through each book and how my students work through each book. And it's a great little guide. It's totally free. If you're interested in that, shoot me a comment or a DM and I will send you the link 100% for free, just so that you can get rolling on an etude regimen, because etudes are so important too. So don't forget your etudes. Even if you aren't working on a big repertoire piece, rotating through etudes every week or 2 weeks is a great way to help build those skills, again, in context, in a melodic way. And also, one of the fringe benefits is that you get some really good sight reading practice when you are reading through those, every week or so, when you're sight reading something new every week or every other week. So yeah, if you're interested in that, shoot me a message or leave me a comment. I would absolutely love to share that with you. I'd love to share it with everybody because I think it's so important. So yeah, so as a flute teacher, I do try to practice as regularly as possible. I do have to schedule practice into my studio time, and sometimes I have to completely block it off because otherwise I may get a makeup lesson scheduled in there, or anything could come up that could kind of derail that. And it is very important. It is a priority to me to be able to practice my flute on a regular basis. When I was first rebuilding my studio after I moved to California, I was not able to make it as nearly as much of a priority. However, now that things are leveling out, I've been here for about 6 months now, things are starting to level out and calm down. I'm actually able to schedule that into my day. I use a practice journal. I pay attention to what I'm practicing. I pay attention to the metronome markings. Yes, I do still practice with the metronome, especially as I am working on speed, working on slowly increasing my speed and being clean with it. And I think that's super important too. Remember, the more that you practice with a metronome in the very beginning, the less you'll actually have to work with it hardcore later on, right? So if you are spending a lot of time building and developing that internal pulse, over time you will be able to back off on the metronome practice and really just use it to check yourself with, or use it when you're doing things like what I'm doing, where you are actively working to increase your speed. So, yes, flute teachers do practice too. Flute players do practice too. Musicians, professional teachers, we all practice. We all put time in. Not just because we have to, but because we do love it. And that's why we got into it to begin with. And remember, friends, remember to never stop chasing the carrot. There's always something more to improve on. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we do as musicians, is that we don't ever have to stop if we don't want to. And if you want to, that's fine. If you want to get to a point that you're like, I have finished improving, I have done the things, that is incredible. I'm so proud of you. And I encourage you to do what's best for you. However, for me, I'm never going to stop chasing that carrot, because I love what I do. I love what I do, and never ever do I believe that I'm going to be the best flute player in the world, but because I love my flute so much and I want to give it some love and I want to respect my flute, I am going to continue to work on the fundamentals and continue to get better as a flutist. And also because I love my students and I want to give them the best music education that I possibly can. So I will always continue learning. I will always, as much as I can be, as much as I can afford to be personally, I will continue to take lessons. I will continue to work through an etude regimen. There's no shortage of etudes in this world for you to work on. I will always continue to work out of the Trevor Y omnibus. I will always continue to work on the Reichert, the Taffanel and Gobert, all the Moyes studies, everything that I can possibly do, I'm going to continue to do, because I want my students to have me at my best, so that they can get the best flute education possible. And also because, again, I love it and I respect it and I want to give it all that I've got. So I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me in my weekly update about life as a flute teacher, and I will see you next week.